I just keep refreshing. Oh, you can hear the dog barking, maybe. Oh, there we go. There we go. Hello, hello. I can't hear my own voice. Hold on. I can hear the dog barking through Twitch, but I can't hear. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. Hello, hello. Welcome to Music Club. Today we are talking about what's the name of the album? You Know What They Mean. You Know What They Mean. By Bent Knee. Sam, you picked this album, so why don't you go ahead and explain your process behind that?
I think a lot of it was just knowing that these guys are fairly off the beaten track in terms of like contemporary music. Like there's kind of a it would be reasonable to describe them as indie, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of, but they're indie with like this really kind of razor sharp sensibility for creating music that like simultaneously jives with modern sensibilities and also can like subvert them and move a little beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, more than anything, it was just because I was going through the list of albums that I was thinking of, and I'm going, okay, these guys are the only ones that basically Ethan and I would not have already heard of, like, or people other than Ethan and I would not have already heard of. My
ironic.
Is on the fritz today. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's ironic that we're the only two here.
Yeah, that is not lost on me.
Yeah, but life happens.
Yeah, but that, and you know, I think they make great music, and it's worth it to shout them out. Although, you know, I think they're doing a pretty good job of promoting themselves for the most part.
They're certainly doing a better job than we are. Yeah, I mean, we've both seen them live. I think that's the context.
Yeah.
Together, it wasn't separately. Yeah, I mean, I know you've been in,
right?
Huh? Twice? Yes, twice. Yes,
right?
Twice.
Yeah.
Yes, twice. One of them was definitely for the tour of this album.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just
most recently,
just having just listening to the album, I was like, oh, I know most of these songs just from having seen them live, and I'm like, okay, you know, it was probably like 2019 when we saw them, so it's like that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was like fall 2019. Just mere months before the world went crazy. I mean, the world was already crazy.
Yeah.
The world very visibly lost its shit.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you've been into this band for a while. So this was this was a good eventual, thing for us to discuss. Let me get my notes up.
Yeah.
Immediately, I will say Lansing was cute, and also as someone who's done live audio before, when they're like, hey, everybody has bad taste, I'm like, I appreciate that. Sometimes there's quite oft musicians are not understanding why things don't immediately work, and it's just like, hold on, like someone has to physically do things, like change things and stuff. So yeah, I just thought it was funny.
I mean, I remember when we saw them live, them like singing back the feedback notes
Mm-hmm.
and kind of helping identify all of the unpleasant resonances that needed to be curbed a little bit.
Right, which is super helpful because it is like specific frequencies that you're just pulling, right? It's not. I mean, I suppose it depends on what kind of EQ and all that, but I won't. Not to get into the nitty gritties of anything like that, but yeah, it is helpful, and yeah, like even just seeing them live, you could tell they're kind of experienced on stage to the level of like knowing what's understanding the process and not just performing.
Yeah, and I think that's owed in equal parts to the fact that they're very experienced on stage, and the fact that as part of the band history, they all met at Berklee College of Music. So like they even if they hadn't been on stage a lot yet, that's the kind of thing that just gets covered in the curriculum there. So
Yeah.
But they've also been on stage a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Berklee is quite a prestigious music school, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it? Would you say it's the top? It's the most prestigious?
For music, I don't know. Probably because I know for other performing arts, Juilliard is really up there. But I would say, yeah, Berklee, as music conservatories go, is probably the top.
All right.
I don't know though. I am
regardless.
I am a majority self-taught boy. So.
Yeah. Regardless, I mean, how prestigious any university is only matters to the degree of how much funding that they have and what like top professors and stuff would go to that school. I think that Ivy League and stuff is highly overrated. Aside from on your resume, like obviously on your resume it looks great and you'll get better jobs because of that, but how much is this quality of the school and how much is just money, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Berklee is known for churning out a lot of really competent working musicians, and a decent number of stars have gone there. John Mayer went there. I think Steve Vai went to Berklee.
Hold on. I just Googled it, and the first one that popped up was Steve Wozniak, and I'm like, that's not a musician.
Oh, that might be UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
Yeah, Berklee is Berklee. Yeah.
Wow, College of Music. Famous grads.
It's a ton of them.
Yeah, Quincy Jones, Steve Vai, John Mayer. Yeah, there's so many. But and a lot of these aren't famous.
I think St. Vincent went for a bit and dropped out. But...
Sounds like St. Vincent. Yeah. That's very on brand. To go to a fancy music school, but then drop out. Yeah, let's move on. Notes. The immediate wall of noise was something that I appreciate. But also, that is the point when someone would turn it off. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, that is the decider for people whether or not they're going to listen to it right there. Like, if they hear that wall of noise and that's super unpleasant to them, they're going to turn it off. They're not going to listen to it. Like, and that's going to be, I don't know, 60% of music listeners, I would say. Maybe, like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I appreciate them being willing to be very upfront with what you're signing up for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, in general, Bentley's music is very visceral.
Yeah. It's a good word.
And this album in particular gets a lot more gets a lot more, like even more into that territory. I mean, Courtney Swain's vocal delivery has always had a character to it that makes like basically anything she sings, with the exception of the occasional soft tracks, like very punchy.
Yeah,
She's got a
it's
very, very brassy voice.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
She uses female falsetto, which is not something that a lot of people do. The actual that like, because you hear men doing it a lot because it's like it's stylistically right. Like, you could name 100 people, who, but the female falsetto, like, not everyone even has it, but like you can hear it, and I was like, oh, okay, like.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's very explosive. I would say sort of vulnerable. Um, I don't know. It has a very
In
unique
general,
character.
Yeah, it's got. We've discussed the concept of emotional dynamic range, right? And
Right.
this is huge on this album.
Mhm.
They cover a lot of ground. They move from very, very fragile, kind of closed and vulnerable spaces to these like just cacophonous walls of noise and like percussive, really driving,
Right.
heavy, detuned grooves.
Right. And I think the way that they blend those two things is really what's unique to this band in particular. Because there's lots of experimental bands that do crazy stuff and walls of noise and all that stuff. But it's the blending of that, like, sorrowful vulnerability with the cacophony and it just being kind of, like, seamless that I think is unique and what sets this band apart.
Yeah, the fact that they can navigate both of those territories with equal deftness and transition between them in ways that don't interrupt.
No, in fact, in ways that feel impactful, right? It's like because, like, if you want to think like the anxious mind or the like depressed mind or like whatever, like it does click in a way. Like this cacophony does exist, and also the sorrow does exist. Like they're translating something emotional that is very difficult to translate, and they're using these different languages in order to sort of express them. And I think it's the combination of that it's very. I already said that, but
Really neat. And then on top of that, they also know how to write really good hooks.
Yeah.
Which, as like a third, inclusion. Which again, it's just.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see where they go.
Right.
Because on the one hand, I don't think they aspire to be like selling out stadiums. I would guess that it's the sort of thing that they wouldn't say no to, but that they're probably. I think they love the smaller venue experience enough that I'm kind of curious as to what they're aiming for. Because opening with that wall of noise is immediately polarizing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely enough Wall of Noise fans to fill a stadium in like a big city.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is a stadium group. I think that like seeing them in a stadium might like lose some of the appeal. I don't know. And maybe that's just like a hipster, I don't want things that I like to be popular because I want to feel cool for liking them. I don't know.
I do think it is more that, like, if we think about the like cultural associations with this stadium, like at that point, this is like artist as commodity level.
Yeah.
Attainment, and I don't know that that's.
Yeah.
Given that this is such like vulnerable, soulful, and like in many cases, perfectly imperfect music. They use plenty of like detuned elements. Like they'll preserve moments of wandering off pitch a little bit. That just feels weird in like a place where you pay $10 for a terrible solo cup of beer.
Right. I thought you were gonna say pay $10 for the ticket. And I was like, hell. That's that's not accurate. Yeah, $10 for yeah. It's not even a solo cup. You'd be lucky. It's the plastic cups that look, they're clear and they look like the bigger plastic cups, but they're actually like smaller. They're like 8 ounces or something. That's what you're paying $10 for.
$10 for a fucking plastic cup of PBR.
Yeah. Oh God. And I've done it before. I think we've all done it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think those two. I don't think those two that meshes up very well. And like, not every piece of art has to be designed for mass appeal. Like, I think that's sort of a fault of capitalism. Is like people always think, okay, I'm an artist. How do I now dilute myself to the point where I can make $1 billion? And
Yeah.
yes, you will make $1 billion as the artist. I mean, you're not guaranteed to, even if you do that, um, but like the cost is all the niche audience that you would have had that actually really did vibe with the like true heart of what it is completely loses it, like its luster, right? Like when you're speaking to a niche audience, you're generally speaking to them a lot.
Yeah.
And you lose that, right? Which, so that's why I don't want them to be selling out stadiums. I like what they're doing right now, and I don't like the changes that would have to be made in order to get to stadiums.
I agree. I think the only reason I even think about it is just wanting to ensure that they are able to keep making their music.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Increasingly hard, but they're doing a good job of they're doing a good job with merch and
right
other ways of supporting them. Plus, I know Ben Levin has his YouTube channel. That's actually how I found them. I think Courtney Swaim.
How many? What's the ballpark for his subscribers? Like, I don't want the exact number. Are we talking like 50,000, 500,000?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah, let me check. Because he might have exploded recently, and I don't
right. Oh, Brian is getting on. Tens of thousands. Okay, so he's definitely
135,000 subscribers.
Okay, so he's not making all of his income on YouTube. I don't think that 100,000 subscribers is enough to. It's not like $20,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? Because but that's definitely.
He's actually started doing a lot of stuff in Blender and 3D.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he's been getting work doing that, and that's something he taught himself, I think, just over the past couple of years.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing good. We are midstream, just so you know. We already started, so yeah.
Run a little late. Left the car at home, or left the phone at home, so I couldn't let you know until right after I got here.
It happens. Hey, you're here. That's all that matters, right?
Exactly.
I don't even know what we were on the. Oh yeah.
It sounded like you were specifically on the album, so.
Well,
we were talking about
we were talking about monetizability and art and how, because this is more of a niche group, It's not so niche that you couldn't show your friends, but it's not sell out stadiums. And we're talking about the monetizability of art and to what degree, things have to be changed and stuff in order to make money. And so it is about the album.
All right, makes sense.
Yeah, and we were specifically talking about Ben Levin, who's the guitarist. I found this group by way of him because he has a music theory and just general art things YouTube channel. But yeah,
that's actually a good way to get found.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I no, go ahead.
go ahead.
It wasn't important. It was literally nothing. I was just
I
gonna
was
change
I was going
something.
to totally shift into like getting a little more back into like the actual music
Yeah,
instead of the
that's
stuff
what I was gonna do
surrounding
too.
it.
So go. Just what were you gonna say?
So as Ethan and I already touched on to kind of bring you up to speed, Brian, um, we know what these guys. One thing these guys do really well is cover a really wide emotional range. And I think what continually impresses me in their music is discovering like all of the different ways they can place themselves in these sort of different moods and different emotional states. What like something that caught my eye because really like this album isn't one that I've listened to back to front all that much. I've listened to Catch Light and Hold Me In a ton independently. Those were like the two singles that they kind of promoted the album with. But this was sort of the first time I went in really deeply listening to the album. And like on Love Me Not, they have a 6/8. They've got a 6/8 groove happening, and the drums are only playing 1 through 4, and it creates this
Right.
awesome, like lurching, like failing heart kind of rhythm, which accompanies or underscores the lyrical material incredibly well. And just in general, I think Ethan, you put it best in saying that they use so many different kinds of oral and artist and symbolic language to communicate all of these different emotional states, and they do an excellent job of ensuring congruity between lyrical content and musical content, and like even sound design, just the kind of spaces they're setting up.
Yeah.
I
Well,
am curious to hear what you thought of Courtney Swain's vocals, Brian, because I know female vocalists can be polarizing for you, and I know she's very she's I love it, but man, she is brassy.
So, I she is one of those where I can hear the talent in the voice, but didn't care for her voice at all. It's like the way she controls her voice, the range that she has, shows great vocal talent, but she is what I imagine some people feel that dislike when they hear Geddy Lee. It just has that tone to it that was just very off-putting to me, because I agree with everything you said about the music itself, but the hardest thing I had with the album was getting through her vocals, because it's at a sound that just does not work for me. It's the same reason that I can't stand Adele.
you
It's
can't stand
just
Adele. Oh, Adele's so good.
I can't stand her voice.
She's so talented. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Those are there are. Remember, we've gone over. I generally do not like female vocalists, so it's very rare that you hit female vocalists that I like, and oftentimes the ones I like are less feminine in their vocals. If you think about it, like in Hailstorm's vocals, she's not as feminine with her vocals. There's a certain, I would qualify it as a masculinity tone, which would just be a deeper tone to it, as opposed to right. And with this, it was just the vocals were probably my least favorite part of the album.
What was your favorite part of the album?
I thought the musicianship was fantastic throughout the album. Very very well done. A lot of polyrhythms that Sam mentioned. A lot of sort of changing the feeling. So we're not talking about cohesiveness of an album right now, but it was an album that was both dynamic and cohesive, because within each song there was a lot of change, but almost every song had that pattern, and you could almost expect that at some point there was going to be a dynamic change in a given track.
Right.
And it was just an excellent blend of going soft to focus on the vocals and feature the vocals, and then going and really picking up and focusing on the music and the instruments behind the vocals. So that I thought was the best part of the album, was just the way they controlled those dynamics of each song.
Yeah, and production-wise, I think this is the first time. This is the first time that I've heard like a lot of the like lo-fi-ization techniques that get used in production a lot, and like vaporwave, right? Used in a way that actually feels like it harnesses. It's more of an intimate thing than it is just a like mimetic, like pointing to nostalgia thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think when they use that kind of lo-fi approach, it's frequently it feels like it's kind of grounding you in the all of this decayed media and the like fragmentary memories of this media that artists around their age, would have kicking around in the back of their head just from their own childhoods, right? It feels like this moment of like disclosing the contents of their brain rather than just this kind of like, hey man, remember when we all had VHS players?
Right.
Which is also fun, but hearing it used really intentionally rather than as just an aesthetic is cool. And that's not to say that people who are using it primarily as an aesthetic aren't also using it intentionally, right? It's just using it, again, like the fact that they blend between the two rather than just saying, yeah, I'm going to make like a lo-fi track. They're like, no, we're going to use low-fidelity elements in order to underscore the kind of emotional pleasure,
Right.
the age we feel in discussing this particular part of our psyche, right?
They did a good job in that utilization.
Yeah, especially like
I love Ben Levin's guitar playing so
the detuning and stuff. Like definitely, defo. I gotta open up my notes. I'm like clicking around to so many things. It's like, like Twitch. Check if anyone said anything. I'm like, what we need is mods. I need to get dedicated Twitch mods. But we need viewers before we do that.
Subscribers.
Yeah. Good transitions in this album. Spotify kind of fucked them up a little bit, but that's not their fault. That's Spotify's fault. When you hear a break between the track, it's not because they recorded it that way. It's because Spotify did it that way. But they actually made an effort to transition between songs, which is nice. I appreciate that.
Yeah, like Egg Replacer goes into Cradle Rocks perfectly. I remember like those feel like two parts of the same kind of song, or movements, I guess, in the same piece
of the same symphony. Wow. Also, well, I guess I can save that to the end. Yeah, I hate myself. I wrote golden hour, more like golden shower. I don't know why I wrote that in my notes, but I did.
Did you have to pee at the time?
Ambien or something?
Was I on Ambien? No, I mean I remember doing it. It's just it's a stupid joke. No, I didn't. I mean I have to kind of pee always, Like I kind of always have to pee. Like I think at any given time, unless I have just peed. No, it's not like I need to pee, but like I could pee. Like
I get that at night, so I do understand what you're saying.
Like it's just like like I don't know how to describe it. It's like if unless I just peed, if I like went in a bathroom, like I could at least get some out at any given time.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I hear you.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that
I'm
is
also
an
40,
aging
so that's
thing.
normal for me.
I don't know. That was never a thing when I was a kid. But, like, when you're a kid, you're not really cognizant of, like, your body. So, like, eh.
Fair.
At least I wasn't. I wasn't really cognizant of anything until I was probably, like, 14 years old. And then suddenly I was cognizant of everything all at once.
Self-awareness unlocked. Have fun.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically. If there was only a way to lock that back up, to just get rid of your self-awareness, just cut out the part of my brain that perceives my own existence. I would be a monster, though.
Just watch nothing. Watch nothing but Fox News and OAN. You'll get there eventually.
Yeah, that is not scientifically
No,
proven,
those.
right? We've
Listen,
seen
Fox
millions of
News is
people that way.
canceled. Listen, Fox News is the only people who. Fox News is canceled. All the, like, Trumpers don't watch Fox News anymore. Fox News is like the
Yeah, they're in
traditional
trouble.
conservatives now because they called the election. Especially Arizona. That's the thing why people are mad, is because they called Arizona before anyone
Yep,
else.
they called Arizona first. The AP called it a few hours later, and no one else called it for like 3 days.
Yeah, technically
So now,
they did call it too early, but, like...
Well, but did they? They were right, so I mean...
They were right,
too early.
yes. But, like, it
yeah,
could have changed.
50%, like, it's a coin flip.
Yeah.
And they played the... I mean, that's what they do every time they make a call, so...
Yeah.
They played the odds.
I mean,
well.
that is literally what Fox News does with everything, is play the odds. Is what can we get away with? What can we get away with? What can we get away with?
So true.
But
that has nothing to do with this album.
No, not a thing.
Other notes.
Yeah, go for it.
Other things that I enjoy a lot. I like the fact that they did really excellent use of chromaticism and just general, like, pulling off notes, or notes from out of key, right, for chromatic transitions is really, really cool. Like, there's not a lot. This is some of the music where, like, they'll have a riff, or they'll have, like, a melody line, or they'll have a chord structure in the background that I'm like, oh, that's weird. What are they doing there? And I'll have to, like, sit down and figure it out on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
Which again is just because I think they've all spent so much time developing their ability to kind of, like, translate that. Like, I imagine that a lot of the time this doesn't even come from a theory place for them, although again they all went to Berkeley, so they're all pretty fluent in that as well. But I think they have done a really good job of reaching this, like, effortless level of expression. Not actually effortless, but, just like
the feel of
translating things directly as opposed to thinking in terms of, like, more artifice. And I just, what I've always loved about what got me so interested in Bent Knee was just, again, engaging with Ben Levin's theory content, because he's always been such an excellent advocate for, like, breaking the rules and learning to think in terms of, like, pure expression, and just to use all the theory stuff as, like, pointers in the directions you might want to move if there's something you're trying to express. So
yeah.
And again, the fact that they blend and utilize that stuff in ways that isn't that still feels seamless. They don't feel like wrong notes. They don't feel like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. There was never a point in the entire experience where I felt like this wasn't intentional, right? Like,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, dead air. I only have one more note, and that's just the ending was like ethereal. I don't know. It's not really a great note, but it's and that's all mine. I did all my notes.
Yeah, the ending the ending is interesting in that. That's like the kind of poppiest they get in terms of just general soundscaping, right? That kind of reverb, lightly auto-tuned, digitized space they fade out into. One thing that I've touched on a little bit, but didn't. It was a note that I had that I didn't. I touched on half of it. Was just again that like really excellent transitioning between more retro degraded like vintage sounds and very modern, very explosive. Again, I think that's the word you used, Ethan, and it's excellent. Like there's so much there's so much gunpowder behind so many of their riffs and just so much of their like general sound design in terms of guitar tone, in terms of the way they've got, and in terms of bass production. The drummer's fantastic. It is fun. It is actually funny realizing that, unlike in a lot of bands, the drummer is probably one of the more understated instrumentalists, right? Like he locks in a really, really steady, a really solid groove, but like all of the explosive crap is handled by the other instruments for the most part.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like with drummers, it's always one or the other, right? It's either they're Phil Collins and you're like, holy shit, look at that guy, right? Or it's just like a dude playing like a jazz riff in the background, like for the whole song.
Yeah, I think it's a personality thing with us drummers. Some of us want to. Well, and bassists are kind of the same way too, right? Because it's either you want to be just the back and the rhythm, or you want your music style to be more forefront.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And good drummers can choose to be in the background too. It's more of a personality thing, I think.
Yeah.
It's just you still have the talent, but say no. I'm more of a traditionalist. I want to be in the background, maybe on occasion. Say, hey guys, I'm here, and play something. And then there's your Neil Peart drummers who are like, no, I'm a member of the band, and you're gonna hear everything I do.
Yeah.
Well, I would say Ben, East percussionist, is very much a member of the band. Like he forms the bedrock of a lot of their tracks. It is just it is. I think by assigning him the position, like by making him kind of the heart and the driving, the momentum keeper, it is delegating the like otherwise, because it's interesting thinking that we hear explosive and percussive, and all of these violent adjectives, and you the first instrument you would think of for that stuff is drums. And it's interesting that again he's not doing that as much. When he does have fills, they're super tight.
Right, and when I'm thinking about it, I mean, there's the way we look at it as musicians, and then there's the way the average person looks at it. And that is when there's the rhythm that's doing its job, that's just, it's there, but to the average listener, it doesn't, they're not listening for that. It doesn't feel like that's the part of the song that they're listening to, right? And, I've noticed this more in cover music than anything else. But if you take out your bassist when you're trying to do a cover song, even if that bass line is just playing, 16th notes or 8th notes with some E's and D's, as soon as you take that out, like something's missing and this song doesn't sound right. But as the listener, you're not thinking about, well, I'm listening for that bass and drum line that's just holding a steady 4/4 the whole time. So it doesn't feel like they're there unless you're another musician who's like, no, wait a minute. This dude is really a part of the band. If just tune out everything else and listen to that drum beat and see how important it is to the song.
Yeah, audience perception versus intention versus like the trained ear.
But the drum groove on "Hold Me In" is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it "Hold Me In" opens with just solo drums.
I like that they use.
There's a few times where he really jumps out.
And again, it's like crunchy and tasty.
I like that they use a lot of more contemporary rhythmic structures, like more, like they have occasionally like hip hop sounding beats as opposed to like just sticking with like rock formula. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like that. Anyone have any other notes? Like notes. Notes. I should get a graphic. I should get a... So I can just press a button and have it go like that. Because you can do that. You could do that with Stream. You can do that with Streamlabs. Is you can set like. I mean, I could do it just with OBS too, but you know, I just got to get like a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. These are all things that I say that I want, and then when it comes to actually having to go to the process of doing them, I'm like, is this worth it? But yeah.
The second our first viewer bugs us about it, you'll get it done instantly.
That's true.
Once the people care.
Favorite tracks. So it's funny that you said that Hold Me In and Catch Light were the two singles that they were pushing, because those were the two songs that I just immediately saved. I was just like, yeah, this song.
Those are my two favorite songs on the album.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, this...
That's impressive. It's impressive to me that they correctly identified like the catchiest songs. I mean, I shouldn't be that surprised.
True.
But
a lot of bands don't though. So
yeah.
Like, it is surprising.
Like,
yeah, who knows?
Like they were working on the album and they were like, these are the ones.
Maybe.
And with Ethan, it might be that I just brainwashed him by a mere exposure effect, because every time I've driven him, I've like played these songs occasionally. But knowing that you also felt that way, Brian, I now realize it's not just like subtle propinquity in the background.
Yeah, it was their, it's their Berkeley education that helps them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because think of how many times albums release their singles, and oftentimes the first single is not the best track, and not even amongst like the top 4, but it's that second release that's the best track. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you do want to... Well, I don't know. I suppose there's logic for having the better song second and first. Either way, I'm sure someone who's been doing marketing for a long time would be able to tell you which one is better. Because I can imagine why you would want to do either, right? Like,
right.
I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah, to me, I mean, I fucking love Hold Me In.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love Hold Me In and Catch Light as well. They're just straight bops. But listening through the album though, I find, and I think it's worth saying that just because these songs are the catchiest and the most like, yeah, I want to listen to this again, and I'm like repeat. The other songs are really competent and they're good. It's just they're not catchy in the same way.
Yeah.
That is at least my experience of them.
Yeah.
I think if I had to pick one outside of that, I would say probably. I do love the way Bone Rage opens up.
I like the name Bone Rage. Oh yeah, that one was good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they opened when we saw them live.
Yes,
last year.
That is true.
It is a great show opener too.
It is, yeah. It really gets people's attention. Like you can't. It's hard to ignore that. It like punches you in the face a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know me, I like to be punched in the face.
And I realize. I do realize there is a little bit. I think they've hit a really good spot with this album. In terms of like getting in some contemporary sound, pulling more from like, I mean, they've been using like drunk beats and stuff forever.
Mm.
Like that shows up on, I think Land Animal, it's the track on the album of the same name. They use a really good drunk beat groove. But I realized they were a lot more like proggy art rock prior to this, and now they're like pulling from a bunch of different musical wellsprings, and also doing a better like making stuff catchier, right? So they moved like out of the like pure confessional, and now they're in this like awesome hybrid space where they're preserving that like closeness and intimacy and vulnerability, but still really nailing grooves
Mm-hmm.
and really nailing, you know, the catchy element of things. So they're hitting their stride here. I do think I can understand why some people would be. I am not in any way like a member of the fandom. I'm a huge fan of these guys, but I don't know what the discourse surrounding their discography is. But some of their older stuff was less polished, I think. More, it felt more like something you would see at a house show on the East Coast, right?
Right.
Still super arty and high and like technically proficient, but like just not a little more in the like prog ballpark, whereas this is like taking a lot of contemporary music and a lot of older sound sources and like churning out something really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will stop rambling now.
No.
Scores.
No. I just have nothing to add. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 46 minutes in, let's jump into ratings. Unless anyone has more notes.
Nope.
I found the last word that I need for it. I realized they formerly occupied this much more overtly theatrical space.
Mm-hmm.
They've preserved some of the theatricality and dynamism here, but also set it against the backdrop of these really rock solid, groovy structures, songs, and riffs. So, done now. Theatricality was the word I was looking for.
Theatricality. That's the word of the day. That's Sam's word of the day, theatricality. I will not put a graphic there. But you can imagine the word coming up as I move my hand across the screen.
I want it in the reading rainbow text.
If you can get me a reading rainbow
or the more actually
generator. Oh, the more you know with the star, yeah. If
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ratings. I'll go first. Fuck it. Listenability. That one's tough. I would say, because this album is really good, but it's not an all the time album. It's not a rain or shine album. It's mostly just rain. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't rate the listenability super high. 6. Musicianship, however, let's say 9. I don't think I've given out a 10 yet. I'm not about to start today. They're incredible. They're all incredible. I mean, even seeing them live, you can really tell these are great musicians who have played their instruments so many fucking times. They really know what they're doing. Good job, Berkeley professors. Weird factor. I think they rate pretty high. On the Ethan scale of all the things I've ever seen in my life, and I have like immense horrors that I've sort of let into my brain. You know, they are not there, right? They do not make me. But they are certainly far closer than most music. That's tough, because if you think about like their obvious influences. Like, it's clear that it's like it like translates over, so it's not that weird. But the influences are very weird themselves. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Maybe an 8? No, an 8. Because I can't go all the way, because this, I mean, you know, it's not all the way weird. It's not like John Zorn, like, fucking unlistenable. Fucking, that I would give a 10 to Weird Factor, but a 0 to everything else.
John Zorn definitely gets a 10. Oh my god.
But like, it is still pretty unique. Cohesion, very good. I'm going to give that another 8 because I think the transitions were great. I think that the overall tone was really consistent. I think that it feels like one piece of art. And I feel like there are songs that would be less good outside of the context of the album. Not that they're not good, but they would be less good because the album adds so much as a whole. So yeah, that's me.
Let Sam finish it since this was his pick for the week. Starting with listenability, for me the vocals killed it. Not something I can listen to over and over again. So for me, listenability, I would put it to 4. Just because it's hard for me to get through when I don't care for vocals. Musicianship, 100% agree with everything Ethan said. So I'm going with a 9 as well. Weird Factor. Again, it's hard for me to add much from what you said, Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there is a sense of weirdness because they have taken things that were not necessarily that in some parts were weird and in some parts were not weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sort of blended them very well. So this is one of the hardest scores for me to come up with a number for because of that factor. Like, there's definitely a weird component to the music.
All right.
But it's not like, is each individual part to the whole? That's where the weirdness comes in. Have those things been done? It's so hard with music, like we've talked about before, is looking at it and comparing it in time periods, and obviously this isn't that old.
No, yeah, this album specifically came out last year.
Yeah, it was 2019, right?
Yeah.
So I would say Weird Factor, I'd give it a 7. Cohesiveness, I agree. It does have, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier as to how they do their cohesiveness, where, you know, it's not like it's a concept album. It's not a story that's being told, but like you said, having the same song or having the different tracks together on one album does make that album better. So that something would be lost because they do have some excellent transitions. So I would say cohesiveness, I would put it at a 7.5. And I think that hits them all.
Yeah. Correct. Samuel.
Yeah. Listenability, I think I'm going to agree. I'm going to put it at probably, I think for me, a 7 because I generally just prefer rain music.
Yeah.
To borrow Ethan's verbiage.
Mm.
But it is all of Bentley's music is like deeply cathartic for me, and that's not something that you're always looking for.
Right.
Like, you don't always want to process and let something through you. So much as just like engineer your mood a little bit. However, the singles on their own, I would each give like a 9.
That's fair.
Like the singles they released to promote it, I would give 9s. But like the album as a whole, yeah, probably 7. It's listenable, but yeah, I can't just put it on and listen to it on repeat. Like this is like a copium album for me.
Well, I know a lot of people who need that right now. This is important that we're doing this right now. We're giving you You guys are copium. Oh my god. Okay, hold on. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just imagining a guy in like a MAGA hat. Like a 60, 70-year-old man in like a MAGA hat listening to this and just like crying.
Somehow I think that's not their target audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly not ours either. Because anyway, I always interrupt. I'm sorry. Go ahead with your ratings.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, so that was listenability. Cohesion, I will stick with the herd on this. I'll put it at an 8. I agree, it's not a concept album, but it still feels like a journey through somebody else's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets you down in this kind of tranquil place at the very end, right? So like the arc of that whole journey feels pretty good and very, very intentionally constructed, even though it is more of a stream of consciousness type of cohesion, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like I can see the arc in the I can see the pattern it's following and like the general arc of subject matter and emotional space, even if it's not directly conceptually linked. So yeah, I'd give it an 8.
Hell yeah.
Also, some of the transitions are just overt. And God, I love even the little like just holdover audio stuff they have from like the creation process feels like it sits well. I don't know why.
It's good. People like that kind of stuff. That's what I'm saying. I've been telling you this. It makes you feel like you were there with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I loved how out of tune that guitar got in the last like 30 seconds. Because God, Ben uses the fucking tremolo so much. And it's a Floyd Rose. I think his like signature. He's been used. I think when we saw him, he had his Telecaster. I will admit, weird parasocial relationship territory with Ben Levin that I have, because I recognize his guitars from his backgrounds in his YouTube videos.
That is parasocial.
So I was like, I've seen that guitar. I don't feel like he knows me though. Like I maintain no illusion.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
But you know him and his guitars.
Right.
But yeah, because he's got the Steve Vai signature edition Ibanez that he uses a lot. But when we saw him, he was using the I think it's restored Telecaster. I forget, they did something weird with it. But yeah, that was just a fun little moment. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's cohesion. Musicianship, obviously, 9. I think, if only because I kind of know what they're individually capable of outside of this band, I would be wanting to give it higher. But like they're not trying to be showy and virtuosic here. They're exercising restraint and, frankly, again, like playing cool, reasonably complicated stuff like effortlessly and super tight. And even when they're not tight, it's intentionally moving off of the grid and uneasy. It's incredible. And the fact that they can do that live is even more incredible.
Yeah, they sound very similar live as they do in recordings. I will say that. Is like they're not one of those bands that sounds like a different band live. Like obviously the recording is going to have more because it's a recording, but like they sound very similar.
Yeah. Oh, and Sam's one individual sound design note. This isn't a gripe though. It's like a little, I forget what the synth is, but the little patch they use on Catch Light, that super shrill synth lead. So tasty. Want to figure out how to replicate that sound. Anyway.
Write them an email.
So yeah, musicianship 9, and then that puts weird factor. Give me your synth patch.
I'm serious. They might respond. Like when I messaged fucking.
Oh, I could just comment on one of Ben's YouTube videos.
Do it.
Be like, hey.
Hey,
Yeah,
in this part of this song.
Benny fan. What's the synth patch on Catchlight?
Yeah. Or just wait till you see them.
Can you ask Courtney for me?
Wait till you see them again live, and then be waiting in line at the merch booth, and then as you're buying like a t-shirt, go, okay, so on this song, on this album, what was the exact synth patch you were using?
Yeah.
Because
Why not?
no, that's
yeah.
Shows you're a true fan.
Weird factor.
Yeah, but they're not gonna know. Like right there. That's why it's funny. There's no way they're gonna be like, oh yeah, it was this. Like,
I don't know. I feel like if you asked Sam that question standing at a merch table on some songs, he'd be able to tell you what he used.
Sam is not the average person though, in terms of being able to remember things. Because if you asked me, I'd be like, fuck, dude. It'd have to be literally right in front of me. Otherwise, I would not tell you.
Yeah. And for me, that ability is purely a result of profound boredom with default sounds. So it's that I have to go through an agonizing process of creating every sound that I do. So, weird factor. I'm also gonna put it pretty comfortably at. I think pretty comfortably at an 8 or like 8.2, 8.3. My first inclination was to say that because they've abandoned not abandoned, but toned down some of the theatricality. I don't know if it's as weird as some of their previous stuff, but I also realize they're much more freely making use of disparate sources and weird and combining strange things on this album. Again, in a way that is pretty much never objectionable or harsh, but is still genuinely weird and interesting. Like there's this cool collage art sound, but it's all once again woven together pretty seamlessly. So yeah, mid 8s for weird factor.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all of them?
And that's every category, I think.
Mm-hmm. We got in so many tangents. I legit. It's like I hope Sam remembers.
Yeah, that was all of them.
Awesome. Overall, that's really hard. Brian, do you know yours? Because I don't know mine. For overall,
I would give it for overall for everything we've discussed. I'd give it a 6.5, maybe a 7. Yeah, let's be generous and say a 7, because really the only thing that I had against the album was the vocals.
Right.
and then that's a huge part of the album, obviously. But overall, well done album, great musicianship. You could clearly tell that there was an artistic vision for the album, and I think they managed to portray that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think a 7 is fair.
I definitely have to rate it higher than a 7. 8? Let's say 8. I think 8 is fair. I think 8 is fair for me. Yeah, because I do really like them. But like that's like I don't really have an expanding like anything else to say about it. I'm just like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah. For me, I'm gonna go with 8.5. I think in general, I realized the one note that I have for as much as I've just been like pretty uncritically praising this album, I do think I know Courtney's capable of delivering word lyrics clearly, But realizing that I like going through this and looking at the lyric sheets and realizing like how many lyrics I had been mishearing when I hadn't been doing that. And how much depth is added and how much depth is added to the songs by like reading the lyrics. Like the lyricism's good enough that I kind of wish she had been clearer vocally. And I think I might be totally misremembering, but on previous albums, I think she handled that a little better. I love what she's doing with her voice. I get that it's polarizing. Like it's genuinely the sort of thing that it's like, I don't even know why I like it. Because again, I don't really like Geddy Lee, and they do similar singing.
And they very much do. And whereas I like it coming from a male vocalist, from a female vocalist, I'm like, this is, because from Geddy Lee, there's definitely times where you're like, oh, he's just going to a place where this is just too much. And I think she's always at that place that just has crossed that line for me. So it's like, it's right there on the cusp,
Or maybe it's sexism. No, I'm just kidding.
And I'm sure she's way more attractive than Geddy Lee is. So, I mean,
that does not counter the sexism. That does not counter the sexism. When I say sexism and you're like, but she's hotter, you're like, I'm going to double down.
But
hey, there's got to be positives there too.
Oh, God.
Moving along. Jesus Christ.
Sexism is a pure dislike of someone because of their sex and treating them differently.
It's discrimination. It's not dislike necessarily. There could be positive, like with racism, there could be positive racism. Like assuming all black guys have giant dicks and they're great in bed is racist, but it's a positive racism, right? But it's racist.
Well, it's a racial stereotype, but we tend not to use the isms and the ists when we're referring to positive traits. They're definitely using stereotypes, but
I will say, Brian, sexism is not just this, like, reducing somebody to their sex appeal is pretty sexist.
I mean, I don't think so at all. That's
I think that's pretty well within the accepted academic. The objectification is considered pretty.
Well,
but moving
yes,
forward.
if you're doing it for a negative purpose, sure. But when you're looking at it as a positive, absolutely not.
I think that
the point is that is psychologically harmful, whether or not it's meant to be a lot of the time.
Well, psychologically implies that she's
hearing. I mean, she could, but it's not just her. It's not just her. It's any female identifying person who might listen to this, right? Then gets the idea, oh, my talent isn't my value, it's my body or whatever, right?
Well, as you recall, I did give her compliments for the talent. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. I don't think this conversation is going anywhere. I think it was mostly a joke. I think that we could have a long conversation about this.
We probably have at some point.
Yeah, and we probably will in the future, but I don't think that, I think that's it.
Yeah. I just wish for a little more vocal clarity, because the lyrics are really good here, and I had to go out of my way to understand them.
I kind of like the voice as an instrument, and just fuck lyrics, dude. Not everything needs to have lyrics. Sometimes you just want to go, eh. That's not a word, but it sounds good.
With that. I absolutely agree with that. It is only because the lyrics are quite good here, and not
that you want to be able to hear them.
They could. Because I do think she does an absolute. I think the best way to put it is she wields her voice like a weapon, really effectively.
I would agree with that.
Which contributes to that brassy, cutting through, super forceful. The first word I use to describe this album and their music in general is visceral, and her voice fits that perfectly. But she's been able to maintain that visceral quality and still get the words out clearly on previous albums. So, but it might have been a choice here.
Yeah.
So it might just be objecting on the basis of taste, because I'm surprised by a lot of the lyrics.
How many artists are you able to really listen to and truly understand their lyrics when there's a lot of instrumental going on? You know, that is
all of them,
definitely
like all of the lyrics, very rarely.
Yeah. There's always some part in lyrics where
Right.
something just gets garbled up in the music.
Yeah. But in terms of intelligibility, I would say like it's like what percentage of the music can you understand? And for Bent Knee, it's like maybe 30%.
Yeah.
But there are like a lot of pop artists, it'll be like 90%, right? So like there'll always be something, but you know, like Justin Bieber.
When I think about it, that might be part of how they selected the singles, because I realized the lyrics are easily most intelligible on Catchlight and Hold Me In.
The lyrics aren't what got me though. It was like
Oh, I know.
like the pace of the rhythm, like
Yeah,
the BPM was higher than a lot of it, and like it had a lot of energy, and I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with Ethan. That's what brought me in. But it is an interesting point that I think Sam's correct. Those were the more intelligible lyrics, but that wasn't what brought me into the music.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think this is a good point to cut it off, unless anyone has anything important to say or anything they want to reveal to the world. I don't know why I said that. I said that like someone actually has something. I don't know. But make sure you hit the follow button if you're on Twitch. I don't have subscribing yet. We're getting there, but we need followers before we can have subscribers. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell, tell me what you thought of this fucking album, and give the video a like. That's the least important thing. YouTube doesn't care about likes, but I care about likes. I like to see them. It feels good when I see the likes. So,
validating.
Yeah, it's validating.
Like, subscribe, ring the bell.
Yeah, if you like it, and if you like this type of dynamic that we got going on, I got a playlist with all this shit. So check out that. Watch my other videos, like and comment, and do all that on them too. You have a great day all.